Bear in mind closely that I did not see any actual visual horror at the end. To say that a mental shock was the cause of what I inferred, that last straw which sent me racing out of the lonely Akeley farmhouse and through the wild domed hills of Vermont in a commandeered motor at night, is to ignore the plainest facts of my final experience. Notwithstanding the deep things I saw and heard, and the admitted vividness of the impression produced on me by these things, I cannot prove even now whether I was right or wrong in my hideous inference. For after all, Akeley's disappearance establishes nothing. People found nothing amiss in his house despite the bullet marks on the outside and inside. It was just as though he had walked out casually for a ramble in the hills and failed to return. There was not even a sign that a guest had been there, or that those horrible cylinders and machines had been stored in the study. That he had mortally feared the crowded green hills and endless trickle of brooks among which he had been born and reared means nothing at all either, for thousands are subject to such morbid fears. Eccentricity, moreover, could easily account for his strange acts and apprehensions toward the last. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. I am your host, Andrew Carr. Now, this one's going to be interesting, this review. Before we get started, the story we're reviewing is The Whisperer in Darkness. Now, I apologize for not getting this episode out sooner. If you've seen my social media, my Instagram, my Facebook page, my Carniverse group, then you'll know that I delayed this episode for like a week, and then decided to so it would come out today, and then the next episode would come out tomorrow. That is still the plan, but it has changed yet again because this review of The Whisperer in Darkness has been split into two parts. So this is part one of my review of The Whisperer in Darkness. Part two will come out sometime tomorrow alongside the next episode, which we will get to by the end of this episode. So, with all that being said, what is the plot of The Whisperer in Darkness? Well, I will tell you that the reason I was looking into this earlier was that I could find the name of the main character. But his name is Albert Wilmarth. That's it, Albert Wilmarth. He's a professor at Miskatonic University. There's that name again. And which therefore establishes this story within the Cthulhu mythos part of H.P. Lovecraft's universe. There are oh yeah, I was still talking about the story. So Wilmarth is a professor at Miskatonic, and he starts sort of learning about these. He's learned about these rumors of things in the hills, and speaking and doing creepy stuff in the hills, and like people in the woods around the areas are like, we hear things, but then they're not taken super seriously. And then there's this guy named Henry Akeley, who seems to know kind of what they're talking about. And so Albert and Henry start to investigate, but the investigation seems to escalate into a Lovecraftian descent into madness, as all Lovecraft stories tend to do. Let's be real with you. So, yeah, so again, I think the story is split up into 8 parts. I've read the first 4, and it's good. It's not Call of Cthulhu. It's certainly not Dunwich Horror. It's not Music of Eragazon. It's not those, but I think that the intrigue is definitely there, and I think this I think completes a trilogy of foundational stories. If you're going to get into Lovecraft, this is a specifically comprising of Call of Cthulhu, Dunwich Horror, and The Whisperer in Darkness. And the reason I say that is because they in one way or another reference each other, especially Whisperer in Darkness. Whisperer in Darkness seems to be a culmination of the themes and even characters and references in the last two stories we've covered, Call of Cthulhu and Dunwich Horror, so that's why I kind of feel it's sort of a pseudo-trilogy. Of course, there are other stories within the Cthulhu mythos, but I feel like if you read these three, and maybe Nameless City, I'm not sure, you could probably get a good sort of foundational knowledge of the Lovecraft universe and Lovecraft style going forward. Specifically, there are extensive references to, Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth and Nyarlathotep and Azathoth. Did I say Azathoth? Yeah, I think I did. Well, I don't think whatever. There's references to Yuggoth. I think that's how it's pronounced. The planet from which a lot of these eldritch monstrosities apparently exist or were born from, but even then it's kind of like, it's not really where they were born, it's more like I think they describe it as like an outpost of sorts. And even here we kind of get introduced to a new group of creatures, the Migo. It's M-I-G-O, the Migo. And we're not quite sure what the Migo is yet. Again, we are only halfway through the story, or at least I'm halfway through the story. But yeah, I think again this sets up a pseudo trilogy of Cthulhu mythos works. But as it stands now, it's an okay story. I think it's good. It's Lovecraft doing his Lovecraft thing. There's great intrigue. There's a lot of interesting elements going on here, and I think that the story overall, I think the ending will probably pick up, but even now, like at the halfway point, it is starting to pick up. But I don't know. If I'd read this story in its entirety, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to gotten through it in order to get you guys a review on time, to get y'all a review. So yeah, that's partially why I'm also splitting it into two parts, or the main reason is as well. So yeah, so as this is part one, I don't want to spoil the rating that I'll give this. But I will say that reading it currently up to having read parts 1 through 4, that it is worth reading. It's not my favorite Lovecraft story, but again, there's a reason that I think that it's collected here in the best. But yeah, and as I've said to quite an extensive bit, this makes up a pseudo-trilogy in the Cthulhu mythos. So, with that being said, I will see y'all tomorrow, not just with the rest of The Whisperer in Darkness, but also the next story on our list, the Halloween special, as I like to call it, The Color Out of Space. So stay tuned for that. Sorry if this review seems a little bit rushed and a little impromptu, but yeah, we'll see y'all next week with Whisperer in Darkness Part 2 and The Color Out of Space. So this has been the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. I am your host, Andrew Carr, and I'll see y'all then. See ya.